Hello. This is a mood update for the 20th of April. You'll have to excuse the mob cap and the lab coat. I'm still at work, but I can't leave the lab to go and do this in the car right now, and I feel like I needed to do it. And you're also going to be getting a full close-up of my face because I'm not supposed to show the inside of my lab. So I've actually not been having that bad a week. I've been a bit sort of slow, and I wasn't sleeping very well at the start of the week. I think I got 2 hours sleep between Sunday and Monday, which is... I still made it all the way through Monday and didn't fall asleep any earlier than usual. It's one of those like true insomnia where you don't sleep but you don't feel it, you don't suffer from it as much. I tried all my usual tricks and they didn't work. Well, actually no, I didn't try all of them, so it was my own fault really. But yeah, I've been fine for the rest of the week, so I've mostly been at my computer doing paperwork rather than lab work, but I've gotten some lab work done. I've helped out some other people and stuff. It's not just been me for a change, which has been nice, but today I've been on my own all day, and that's not unusual for a Friday, but what has happened is I got back from having my lunch, and I've got several things running at once here, so to pass the time I was working on some prose that I was writing at lunch, and so without me meaning to, it started to turn into a self-descriptive diary from back during my PhD, so my second to third year, where my depression really kicked off, and I was retelling or repicturing myself as I was then, which was thinner, younger, but a lot less fun. And I was describing a night when I had dance practice on the Sunday night with my partner, who was at the time my boyfriend, and we lived together, and I can't remember what happened, but I got really frustrated with myself mostly, and I got into a forced fight on my part with him, and rather than going home I decided that I wanted to just go somewhere else, and I started walking, and because it was Sunday night, nowhere was open, and eventually I ended up at the King's Buildings, which is where I used to work during my PhD, and I went into the Darwin building, which is where my lab was. I went up, and this is about 8 or 9 p.m. I hadn't texted my boyfriend to tell him where I was. I just went up and I sat at my desk for a while, and then I did some lab work, and I was there all night, and this is going into into Monday morning, and come it was early summer, so come sort of 4:30 I was stood in my lab waiting for the sun to rise over the firth, and watching the sunrise is one of those weird joys that you can enjoy it no matter how bad you're feeling, but it was the only happy thing that I remember from back then. I felt like I was really behind on my PhD. I wasn't, that this wasn't unusual. I was often working sort of late nights and weekends. I wasn't seeing my supervisor, I wasn't seeing my colleagues, I was having forced fights with my boyfriend, I wasn't enjoying dancing, and I wasn't in consistent therapy or on medication. I wasn't seeing my mum very often, I wasn't seeing my sister very often, I think it's before I stopped talking to my dad, but I didn't talk to him much either, and when I did, it was always about him. All my closest friends had moved away, and this was before I made sort of close friends out of other people. I just felt so trapped. And I was trapped largely by myself, not just because I wasn't getting help, but because I had it in my head that this was going to be my life. I was going to be an academic, I was going to go on to be a postdoctorate lecturer, what have you, and I was always going to be in this situation. It wasn't until later on that I realized I don't have to do this. I can break out of academia, I can go into industry, I'll be much happier. And I really was, I was much happier. But back then, I was just I hated myself, I hated everybody else, either for not caring enough or for not hating me enough. There was no winning ground for anybody. I picked fights with my boyfriend, and it was often because it didn't matter what he said or how he felt or how much he wanted to support me or how much he didn't want to support me. There was no right answer. There was nothing he could have done, and the only thing that I could do was help myself, which I didn't do until much later. But it was horrible. And that's where I ended up writing. I started with sort of a description of Edinburgh, and eventually sort of closed in on a woman working alone in a top floor laboratory in the early hours of the morning, waiting for the sun to rise, and just the horrible feeling of there not being anything else to look forward to except this sunrise, and the emptiness that comes with that. And it's just it's an overwhelming despair, not knowing, I didn't want to lose my boyfriend, I didn't want to be unhappy, I didn't want to fail my PhD. I didn't fail my PhD, but I could have done if I hadn't pulled myself together. I just didn't know what was wrong or how to fix it. I was barely even acknowledging that I was depressed at that point. It's just so many nights alone in that building. So many nights I could have been with him, I could have been with my friends, I could have been with my family. I could have actually been working. I mean, I was working, but I was so down and off my game that none of it mattered in the end. I could have been reading, I could have been anywhere. I just spent so much time alone, hating myself. And to think about that now and worry that it might happen again, especially, living alone and largely sort of working on my own, even though I've got co-workers, and not being in a relationship. It's really, really terrifying to think that I might go back there, and I don't ever want to feel like that again. But sometimes I don't know how to fight it anymore. Sometimes I don't want to fight it anymore. Except, part of me does, but then there's the part of me that's just like, no, let this happen, and I don't want it to happen. I have never been closer to ending my life than I was on the nights that I spent up there. If the door to the roof hadn't been locked, or if I had been any better at picking locks, because I did try, I really want to write about this and explain it in some way other than I'm doing right now, because this is a very in the moment thing. I kind of want to get on paper how I felt back then. But every time I go there, and it's like I said in one of my previous videos, where, you know, I'm just being in that place, that situation again can bring it all back, and I'm scared of that. So I need to keep breaking it up, doing other things, and reminding myself that it's not where I am anymore. I have my support network, I have my friends, my cat, my family. I don't need to end up like that again. There are things in place to stop me ending up like that again. It cannot happen again, because people will come and get me. They will come and get me, and they will know what's happening, and they will make it stop. And I have to believe that. That's helping. It's helping knowing that. But yeah, I'm just sort of in a really weird reminiscent place right now, and it's largely fear, and every muscle in my body is tensed right now. But I just wanted to share that, because it's one of those weird parts of depression. You can almost have post-traumatic stress disorder from your last period of depression, so it just sort of adds to it. Anyway, I should get back to work. I was gonna say HPLCs don't run themselves, but they fucking do, so. Right, okay.